The buzz of a notification sliced through the morning quiet like a gunshot. I pried my eyes open, wincing as the sun, an unwelcome intruder through the undrawn blinds, hit me squarely in the face. My hand automatically fumbled for my phone on the nightstand. 6:00 a.m. Who the hell texts at this hour a bank alert? Transaction alert card ending in 5678. Charge $985. Merchant Diamond Dreams Jewelers. I sat bolt upright as if scalded. $980 at a jewelry store at 6 a.m. What on earth was going on? My phone pinged again. Another alert. Transaction alert card ending in 5678. Charge $450. Merchant, Elysian Cosmetics Boutique. And then another and another. Notifications rained down like hail, each purchase more extravagant than the last. A high-end restaurant, a designer women's clothing store, a luxury spa. The amounts kept climbing. Then it hit me. I suddenly remembered 3 months ago Ethan coming home beaming. He'd finally gotten a credit card. He'd been applying everywhere, getting rejected due to his abysmal credit score, and then miraculously, one bank had approved him. He was ecstatic like a kid on Christmas morning. "Sarah, can you believe it? They gave me a $10,000 limit," he'd crowed. "I'm an independent man now." Then he'd asked if I could link the transaction alerts to my phone. His old smartphone, he claimed, had trouble receiving texts, and besides, I managed all our finances anyway. I'd agreed without a second thought. Big deal, a few pings for his purchases. Except there hadn't been many purchases. Ethan rarely used the card, and when he did, it was for small things, gas groceries. Major expenses still came out of my accounts. But now looking at the card number in the alerts, 5678, I realized that was his card, the one he'd been so proud to get, which meant he was spending his own money, not mine. I glanced at the empty side of the bed and smirked. Ethan had left early for a business meeting, as he'd vaguely put it last night, said he was meeting potential partners for his new project. I just nodded, barely listening. Over the past 6 months, he'd had about 20 such projects, all of which had spectacularly imploded. Apparently, his potential partners today were store mannequins. Well, let him spend. It was just funny that he didn't realize whose money he was actually throwing around. Another alert, $1,500 at Furs and Finery. Good Lord, what was he doing? I jumped out of bed and rushed to the dresser where my purse lay. With trembling hands, I opened my wallet. 2 of my cards were supposed to be there, my primary checking debit and my backup credit card. Only one was present. The idiot, I giggled, shaking my head. He thought he'd swiped my card, but he'd taken his own. So while I was peacefully asleep, my darling husband had crept into my wallet, mixed up the cards, and made off with his own credit card. And now he was on a shopping spree with his own funds, thinking they were mine. Probably decided to buy lavish gifts for his precious mother Linda, whose birthday was next week, on my dime or so he believed. I tossed the wallet onto the bed and burst out laughing. I've been on this earth for 35 years, but I'd never witnessed a comedy quite like this. A husband robbing himself thinking he's robbing his wife. But wait a minute. Why was his card in my wallet in the first place? I racked my brain. Ah, yes, I remembered. The day before yesterday, Ethan had asked for some cash for groceries. I'd given him my debit card and he'd slipped his credit card into my wallet for safekeeping, muttering something about not wanting to lose it. Typical Ethan irresponsibility. He'd shoved it in and forgotten about it. And this morning he must have decided to secretly borrow my card for his mom's shopping spree, but in his haste grabbed his own. He was now blissfully spending, convinced he was fleecing his wife. My phone vibrated again, this time a call. Unknown number. Hello, Sarah Miller. Yes, this is David from Chase Bank's Fraud Prevention Department. We've detected some unusual activity on your husband Ethan Miller's credit card. Your phone number is listed as the primary contact. Can you confirm if Mr. Miller is currently at the Galleria Mall? I sank onto the edge of the bed. Probably. What's happened? Over the past hour, there have been charges totaling approximately $500 or $600. The transactions are occurring at various high-end retailers in the downtown area. Are these legitimate purchases? Yes, everything's fine, I replied, barely suppressing a laugh. My husband is buying gifts. Thanks for checking. All right, ma'am. It's just a rather large sum for a single morning. Please be vigilant. The bank employee hung up. I sat there for another minute, phone to my ear. Even the bank was worried. Ethan had blown through nearly $6,000 in an hour and clearly wasn't stopping. I quickly got dressed, gulped down some coffee, and got in my car. I wanted to see this spectacle with my own eyes. To watch my husband secretly spend his own savings thinking he was bankrupting me. If Ethan was really at the Galleria, I'd find him. It wasn't far, maybe a 20-minute drive. On the way, the alerts kept coming. Best Buy, $2,500. Probably a new TV for his mom, or a refrigerator, or both. Men's Warehouse, $1,200. Of course, how could he resist a little something for himself on my money naturally? I chuckled the whole way. Stay calm, Sarah. You're an intelligent woman and you see the humor in this. The main thing is not to spoil this theatrical performance prematurely. I parked near the mall and went inside, starting on the first floor, methodically checking each store. At Diamond Dreams Jewelers, the saleswoman recognized me instantly. Oh, you must be the wife of that gentleman. He said he was picking out a gift for his wife. Such a thoughtful man. I forced a smile. Yes, very. What exactly did he buy? A beautiful emerald set, necklace, earrings, and a bracelet. He said his wife has green eyes, so emeralds would be perfect. Though your eyes are brown, perhaps he was mistaken. Hold on. My eyes are brown. Linda, my mother-in-law, has green eyes. Did he happen to mention who this gift was for? I pressed. The saleswoman looked flustered. Well, he said for his wife. But then he mentioned it was for his mom, I think, or mother-in-law. I didn't quite catch it, to be honest. Aha. So for dear mommy, almost $1,000 for emeralds for his mother. Generosity knows no bounds when you think you're spending someone else's money. I visited a few more stores. Same story everywhere. Expensive gifts for his wife, who somehow turned out to be his mother or his sister or a friend. And at the Elysian Spa, Ethan had paid $1,500 for a full day of pampering for his wife. The appointment was booked under the name Linda Miller, my mother-in-law. At Best Buy, he'd purchased the latest smartphone for $1,200, also for his wife. I wondered how many wives he had. I walked out of the mall and got into my car. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from suppressed laughter. Nearly $8,000. He'd spent almost his entire credit limit in one morning, and all of it was his own money lavished on gifts for his precious mother. My phone rang. Ethan. Hey, sweetie. His voice was so cheerful I could barely stop myself from laughing into the phone. How are things? I'm just out doing a bit of shopping, picking up a few things. Oh, really? I managed, trying hard to stifle my giggles. Bought much? Yeah, just some odds and ends, picking out some gifts for Mom's birthday, you know. She's done so much for us, I really want to spoil her. Odds and ends, almost $10,000. And ends. And what are you using to pay for all this? I asked, already knowing the answer. Well, I'm a bit short on cash, as you know, so I grabbed your card from your wallet. Hope you don't mind. I'll pay you back as soon as my new project takes off. Ah, so that was it. He thought he'd taken my card. If only he knew. Of course, darling, I cooed. Spend as much as you like. It's for a good cause. You're the best. Love you. I'll show you what I bought tonight. He hung up, and I sat there for another minute, phone to my ear, chuckling. Show me what he bought with my money for his mother. If only he knew what a performance he was staging. I started the car and drove home. On the way, I thought about how Ethan had gotten to this point. When had he become so irresponsible? When had he turned into this parasite who couldn't even steal properly? We'd met 3 years ago at a company holiday party for a construction firm. I was an accountant there. He was a sales manager. He made good money, earned decent commissions, seemed successful and confident. He courted me beautifully. Flowers, fancy, restaurants, theater. He said all the right things about a future together, family, kids. I was 32, tired of being alone, and I believed him. We married 6 months later. The first year was okay. Ethan worked, brought in money. We were planning to buy a bigger house. I thought I'd married a reliable man. Then he decided to start his own business. He quit his job, took out a loan, and launched an online store for athletic apparel. He promised that in 6 months we'd be swimming in money. Sarah, you understand a 9-to-5 is a dead end. You have to work for yourself. The store went bankrupt in 4 months. Ethan lost all his investment and was left with a $30,000 loan. I helped out then. I took a second job, tutored math on weekends. Somehow we paid off the debt within a year. Then came the project selling cosmetics through social media. Then courses on cryptocurrency investment. Then a fast food franchise idea. Each time Ethan was fired up with a new idea, swearing this one would bring us riches. And each time I coughed up the money for his latest venture. Sarah, you know, without initial investment, nothing will work out, he'd say. Give me one more chance, the last one. I'll pay it all back with interest. But the chances ran out as quickly as the money for them. Last year, I was offered the position of senior accounting manager at a large real estate development company. The salary was 3 times what I'd been making with excellent career growth prospects. I accepted without hesitation. And that's when everything really went downhill. Ethan seemed to decide he didn't need to work at all. Why bother if his wife earned enough for both of them? He'd sit at home all day studying markets and trends, chatting with similar entrepreneurs online. Every so often he'd appear with a new project that needed funding. At first, I still gave him money for his ideas, but then I realized it was a bottomless pit. 6 months ago, I gave him an ultimatum. Either he found a real job or I'd file for divorce. Ethan broke down, swore he'd change, started going to interviews. He even got a job as a consultant at one firm, but lasted only a month. Sarah, you don't understand that boss was a complete idiot, he explained. And my colleagues were just jealous. They don't get my level. Since then, he'd been feigning a job search, but I could see it was just an act. He'd go to an interview once a week, and not just any interview, only worthy positions paying no less than $100,000 a year. This despite having no real work experience for the past 2 years. At home, he acted like royalty. He could sit in his boxers at the computer all day studying markets and then complain that dinner wasn't good enough or the apartment was messy. As if after a 10-hour workday, I was also obligated to be his maid. Sarah, you understand I work with my mind, he'd say when I asked for help with cleaning. Intellectual labor is much harder than physical labor. And now it had come to theft. Or rather, attempted theft. He'd snuck into my wallet and taken a card without even asking. Though due to his own stupidity, he'd taken his own. I parked in front of our apartment building and went upstairs. Ethan's slippers were carelessly discarded in the middle of the hallway. Unwashed dishes from his breakfast sat in the kitchen sink. Magazines and chip bags were scattered on the living room couch. A typical scene. Ethan leaves the house and leaves a mess behind for me, his servant, to clean up. I went into the bedroom and opened the closet. In the far corner behind the winter clothes was a small lockbox. Inside was a key to a safe deposit box at a different bank. That box held my real savings. The money I'd been putting away for the last 1.5 years for my own condo. Ethan knew nothing about it. He thought all my income went to family expenses and his projects. In reality, I'd been setting aside $1, $500, $2,000 every month, quietly, discreetly. In 18 months, I'd saved nearly $35,000. The money was in an account at a bank where Ethan had no access. The debit card for that account was in the safe deposit box. I was ready at any moment to pack my things and start a new life, without the parasite who considered me his personal ATM. All I needed was that final straw to break the camel's back. It seemed that straw had arrived today, albeit in a most unexpected form. I took the lockbox and tucked it into my purse. Then I went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. I needed to calm down and think things through. Outside, it was a beautiful spring day. The sun shone brightly. The first leaves were budding on the trees. Perfect weather for new beginnings. My phone pinged again. A bank alert. Transaction alert card ending in 5678. Charge $350. Merchant, the Golden Pagoda Restaurant. I smirked. Apparently he was treating Mommy to lunch as well. At the most expensive Chinese restaurant in the city. On his own dime, though he didn't know it. But let him spend. Let him have one last blowout. Soon enough, I'd give him a surprise he wouldn't forget for a long time. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and started planning. I needed to wait for Ethan to come home with his purchases pleased and happy. Let him tell me what a devoted son he was, how he'd spent my money on gifts for his mother. And then I'd explain whose money he'd actually squandered. I wondered what his face would look like when he realized he'd been robbing himself all day. The phone pinged again, another $1,000 at some high-end boutique. Ethan was clearly on a roll. I opened the calculator app on my phone and started tallying. In 6 hours, he'd spent over $9,500, practically his entire credit limit. What a generous son. Mommy would be thrilled with such gifts, especially when she found out Ethan had spent his own savings on them, thinking he was bankrupting his wife. I finished my tea and went into the living room. I turned on the TV and found some sitcom, the perfect mood setter. An interesting evening lay ahead. About 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was my colleague Megan. "Sarah, you home?" Her voice was agitated. "Can I swing by? Something crazy just happened?" "Sure, come on over, I'm free." Megan arrived half an hour later with a box of donuts and a bottle of wine. We'd been friends for about 5 years ever since we worked at the same company. She was 3 years younger than me, but much wiser when it came to men. "Hey, where's Ethan?" she asked, looking around. "It's awfully quiet." "Shopping," I smirked. "Buying gifts. With what money he doesn't work." "Exactly. And I have a story that's even better than yours." I told Megan the whole morning's saga with the cards. At first, she listened with bewilderment, then with astonishment, and by the end of the story, she was roaring with laughter. "Seriously? He stole his own card thinking it was yours." Megan wiped tears from her eyes. "Oh my God, that's priceless." "Tell me about it." Right now, he's probably strutting around the mall thinking he's bankrupting me, but he's actually blowing his own money. "And you're not going to tell him?" I smiled slyly. "Not yet. I want to see how he tries to spin this when he gets home. Can you imagine? He'll be telling me what a great guy he is for showering his mom with gifts using my money." Megan shook her head. "Sarah, haven't you thought it's time to end this circus? Seriously, how much longer can you put up with this? The guy's been freeloading off you for 2 years. I sighed. Megan was right, of course. What she didn't know was that I'd already made up my mind. I have thought about it, and not just thought. I showed her the lockbox with the key to the safe deposit box. $35,000 saved up. I'm buying myself a condo. Without him. Megan whistled. Wow, and does he know? Of course not. He thinks I spend everything on us. Smart girl. So when are you moving out? After tonight's performance, I think very soon. We drank some wine, chatted about work and summer plans. Megan told me her story. She'd broken up with her fiancé because he wanted to live with his parents after the wedding. She ended up telling him where to go. You know, Sarah, she said as she was leaving. Looking at your situation, I realize I did the right thing. Better to be alone than with a parasitic man. After she left, I sat back in front of the TV. Time dragged on. Ethan still hadn't returned, and the spending alerts kept coming. It looked like he was determined to max out his card to the last cent. At 7:00 p.m., my mother-in-law called. Sarah, dear. Linda's voice was ecstatic. Thank you so much. Ethan brought such wonderful gifts. I smirked. I wondered what he'd told her. You're welcome, Linda. What exactly did he bring? Oh, everything is so beautiful. Jewelry, cosmetics, a new phone. He said you let him spend the money for my birthday. You're such a thoughtful daughter-in-law. Thoughtful daughter-in-law. If only she knew this thoughtfulness had cost her son nearly $10,000 of his own dollars. Well, it's your special day. We wanted to do something nice. Ethan said you two picked out the gifts together. You're such a harmonious couple. Picked them out together. What was he thinking? Yes, we tried very hard, I replied, struggling to keep a straight face. After talking to my mother-in-law, I fully understood the extent of Ethan's deceit. So he hadn't just spent the money on gifts, he'd also lied to his mom, saying I was involved. He probably wanted to cover his bases in case I objected to such extravagant spending. Clever in a way. Too bad his cleverness wasn't pointed in a more productive direction. At 8:30, I heard keys jiggling in the lock. Ethan was back. I quickly muted the TV and pretended to be reading a book. "Sarah, honey, I'm home." His voice was so pleased it made me want to laugh. He walked into the living room lugging several large shopping bags. "Look what I got." Ethan beamed like a child in a toy store. I picked out such amazing gifts for Mom. I put down my book and looked at the bags with interest. "Show me." Ethan started laying out his purchases on the coffee table: a jewelry box, expensive cosmetics, a brand new smartphone, a silk scarf, a leather handbag. Everything was indeed very beautiful and expensive. "See, aren't I great?" Ethan puffed out his chest proudly. Mom was ecstatic, said she's never had such gifts before. "I bet," I agreed. "How much did all this cost?" Ethan hesitated. "Oh, not too much. Around 8,000, maybe a little more." A little more. He'd spent nearly 10,000 and said a little over 8. "Ethan, do you remember which card you took?" He looked at me surprised. "Of course I remember. I took your card, the one that was in your wallet." "Are you sure it was my card?" "Sarah, what are you talking about? Of course it was yours. I'm not blind." I stood up and went to the dresser where my purse was. I took out my wallet and showed him my credit card. Ethan looked carefully. "This is my card. It's here in my wallet." Ethan stared at the card, then at me, then back at the card. His face began to pale. How is this possible?" he stammered. "It's simple. You didn't take my card. You took your own, the one you got 3 months ago and stuffed into my wallet for safekeeping." Ethan sank into an armchair. His hands were trembling. So I spent my money." "Exactly. All $9,750-something. Your own money." Silence descended. Ethan sat staring into space, clearly trying to process what had happened. I watched him with curiosity. What would happen next? "Sarah," he finally said in a hoarse voice. "But you knew. Why didn't you say anything? And why should I have? You were so eager to spend my money on gifts for your mother, so you spent it. Turns out it was yours. But I thought, what did you think, that you could just dip into my wallet without permission, that I'm obligated to pay for your gifts?" Ethan looked up at me, bewildered. "But we're family. I thought you wouldn't mind." "Ethan, you stole a card from my wallet. You didn't even ask. You just took what you thought was my money and spent it. But I was going to pay you back as soon as the project—" "What project?" I laughed. "You haven't had any real projects for 2 years, just endless plans and promises." Ethan got up and started pacing the room. "So you deliberately kept quiet, watched me spend the money, and said nothing. What was I supposed to say? Ethan, you're spending your own money. You would have thought I'd lost my mind. But you understood. I thought I was spending yours. Of course I understood. And you know what I was curious to see, what you were capable of, how far your audacity would go." Ethan stopped and stared at me. "Sarah, did you set me up?" "I didn't set up any traps. You set yourself up. You decided to steal my card. You stole your own. You decided to spend my money. You spent your own. It's all fair. But I didn't know. And I was supposed to know you were snooping in my wallet. Supposed to guess your criminal intentions." Ethan sat back down in the armchair and buried his face in his hands. "What am I going to do now I have no money left? The credit card is maxed out. What would you have done if you had spent my money?" I asked. "Would you also be sitting here whining, 'I would have paid it back. I swear I would have.' With what, on what money? Ethan, you haven't worked in 2 years. You don't have a penny of income." "But the project—" "Forget about your projects," I snapped. "They're all fantasies. You live in a world of illusions." Ethan looked up, tears welling in his eyes. "Sarah, please help me. Give me some money just to live on. I didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean to. I stood up and walked over to him. Ethan, you deliberately went into my wallet. Deliberately. Took a card and deliberately spent the money. The only thing that wasn't deliberate was that the card turned out to be yours. But we're husband and wife. Yes, husband and wife. Except husbands usually support their wives, not the other way around, and they certainly don't steal from them. Ethan sniffled. What am I going to do? Mom's expecting me to keep spoiling her. Let Mom be happy with what she got. There won't be any more gifts. But her birthday party, the party will happen just without expensive gifts. Let her enjoy her son's attention. Ethan looked at the purchases spread out on the table. Maybe I can return some of it to the stores. Try, but I doubt they'll take it back. You probably threw away the receipts. Ethan fumbled in his pockets and found a few crumpled receipts. No, here they are. Well then, run along and return them. Maybe you'll get something back. Ethan gathered the receipts and a few boxes of gifts. I'll go now. Try to return them. Go, but hurry, the stores will be closing soon. He rushed out of the apartment, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. I needed to think things through calmly. On one hand, the situation was comical. Ethan had punished himself for attempted theft. Justice had triumphed in the most unexpected way. On the other hand, it only confirmed what I already knew: my husband was an irresponsible, greedy man willing to steal from his wife for his own whims. The fact that he'd stolen his own money changed nothing. His intentions were criminal. I sat at the table and pulled out a notepad. I jotted down a plan of action for the next few days. Monday, take a week's vacation from work. Tuesday, go to the bank, withdraw money from my savings account. Wednesday, find an apartment, put down a deposit. Thursday, pack my things. Friday, move out. A simple, clear plan. No unnecessary drama or explanations. Ethan himself had given me grounds for divorce. Stealing money from a spouse, or attempting to, is a serious reason to dissolve a marriage. Ethan returned 2 hours later, looking as gloomy as a thundercloud. Well, I asked. They wouldn't take anything back. Said the cosmetics were open, the jewelry had been tried on. They only agreed to take back the phone, and even then with a 20% restocking fee. How much did you get back? $960. The rest is all gone. Ethan sat down at the table and buried his face in his hands. Sarah, what am I going to do? I'm completely broke. Go to work, I replied calmly, like all normal people. But who will hire me? I have a 2-year gap in my resume. You'll find something. Work as a courier, a stalker. You're not royalty. Ethan looked up at me, indignant. What do you mean a stalker? I have a college degree. You have a degree, but no work experience. You've lost it all in 2 years. Sarah, please give me some money, just a little. For now. I won't. What do you mean you won't? We're family. Family is when both partners work and both contribute to the common budget, not when one slaves away while the other lies on the couch making plans with someone else's money. Ethan stood up and started pacing the kitchen again. So you're abandoning me in my most difficult moment. Ethan, your difficult moment has been going on for 2 years, and all this time I've supported you. But this is a special situation. The special situation was when you were sneaking into my wallet for someone else's money. Everything else is a consequence of your actions. Ethan sat back down at the table. Okay, let's say I find a job. But what do I do right now? I don't even have money for food. There's money for food. The fridge is full of groceries. And for transportation. For my phone bill. You'll walk. It's good for your health. Ethan looked at me with despair. Sarah, I know you're angry, but you can't be like this. I'm your husband. Exactly. Which is why you shouldn't steal from me. Husbands don't behave like that. But I didn't know it was my card. And if you had known it was mine, then stealing would have been okay. Ethan fell silent, apparently realizing he'd backed himself into a logical corner. What am I going to do now? He asked quietly. Grow up, Ethan. Finally grow up and become a man. Not an infantile boy who lives off his wife and steals from her. I stood up from the table and went to the bedroom. The conversation was over. Tomorrow, I would start putting my plan into action. All night, Ethan tossed and turned beside me, sighing, and even whimpered a couple of times. I pretended to be asleep. Let him suffer. Let him think about what he'd done. In the morning, he got up before me, which was extremely rare. Usually, Ethan slept until noon, but here he was at 8:00 a.m., already pottering around in the kitchen. Apparently, the realization that he had absolutely no money had a sobering effect. When I came out for breakfast, he was sitting at the table with his laptop browsing job sites. "Sarah," he said without looking up, "how much money do we have in our joint account? Why do you ask?" "Well, maybe we should cover some of what I spent from there. It feels really awkward otherwise." I nearly choked on my coffee. Awkward for him. Awkward that he'd spent his own money. "Ethan, what are you talking about? You spent your money from your card. What does our joint account have to do with it?" "But I thought I was spending yours." "And so, what your intentions were thieving. The fact that you stole from yourself doesn't make you any less guilty." Ethan finally looked up at me. He looked terrible. Puffy eyelids, stubble, wrinkled clothes. "Sarah, but objectively nothing happened. Your money is untouched." "Ethan, if a burglar broke into someone's apartment and it turned out to be his own apartment, would he stop being a burglar? Your logic is interesting." "But that's completely different." "Not different at all. You wanted to steal, so you're a thief. The fact that you stole from yourself is just a cruel irony." Ethan buried his face in his laptop again. "Still, I need to figure something out, at least for food and transportation. Work. But it's not that quick to get a job." "Well, then sell something. You've accumulated a ton of junk." Ethan perked up. "That's right, I have my gaming console and my collection of games," I smirked. The gaming console he'd spent $500 on 6 months ago. From my salary, of course. He'd said at the time it was an investment in relaxation and psychological well-being. "Sell it. Maybe you'll get something for it." Ethan, encouraged, started posting ads online. I finished my coffee and got ready for work. "Sarah," Ethan called out to me, "could you lend me a little money? Just a tiny bit for essentials." "No. But why? I promise I'll pay you back." "Ethan, in 3 years of marriage, you've borrowed roughly $10,000 from me for your projects. How much have you paid back?" He hesitated. "Well, there were difficulties." "Zero, Ethan. You haven't paid back a single cent. So, no more loans." And I left for work, leaving my husband alone with his sales ads. At the office, the first thing I did was go to my boss, Michael Patterson, and request a week's vacation. "Is everything all right, Sarah?" Michael asked, concerned. "Family matters. I need to sort some things out." Of course. Take the time off. You work incredibly hard here. You've earned a break." After work, I went to the bank where my savings were. I withdrew $20,000. That would be enough for a down payment on a condo and furnishing it. The rest could stay put for now. Then I went to look at apartments. I chose a nice one-bedroom in a new building 10 minutes from the subway. Small but cozy, renovated and furnished. The landlady, a woman in her 50s, seemed pleasant. "Will your husband like the apartment?" she inquired. "I'm renting it alone," I replied. "I'm getting divorced." The woman nodded sympathetically. "I understand. Been through it myself. Don't worry, new life, new opportunities." We agreed that I would bring the documents and deposit tomorrow. I was renting the apartment starting the 1st of next month, which was a week away. I returned home in a good mood. Ethan was still at his laptop, but he looked more animated now. "Sarah," he greeted me happily. "Guess what? I found a buyer for the console. He's picking it up tomorrow, giving me $250 for it." "Not bad." I agreed, and I sent out a few resumes. 2 employers already responded. They're inviting me for interviews. Well, that's great, so things aren't so bad after all. Ethan cheered up and even offered to make dinner. I agreed, although I usually did the cooking. Let him do something around the house for a change. Over dinner, he talked about potential employers, made plans for how he would return to a normal life. He spoke beautifully, convincingly. It was just a shame I didn't believe him anymore. "Sarah," he said at the end of dinner, "let's forget about yesterday. I know I was wrong, but nothing terrible happened, right? Your money is still yours, and I learned a good lesson." "What lesson?" Well, that you can't take other people's things without permission, and that you need to be more careful. I looked at him closely. Did he really think the problem was just that he was careless? Ethan, what if you had taken my card? Imagine it. You wake up, take my card, and spend $10,000. What would you have done? Ethan thought for a moment. Well, I would have apologized, explained it was for Mom, asked for forgiveness, and that's it. What else? The money's spent. You can't get it back. I shook my head. He truly didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. He thought an apology solved everything. Ethan stealing money from a spouse is grounds for divorce. What theft, he protested. We're family. In a family, everything is shared. In a family, what's shared is what's earned jointly, not what one spouse secretly pilfers from the other. Sarah, you're exaggerating. Big deal I took a card. It happens. It happens. He thinks it's normal to steal money from his wife. Ethan, do your friends also happen to steal money from their wives? Does Tom steal from Olga? Does Steve steal from Mary? Well, I don't know. We don't talk about that. And you know why you don't talk about it? Because normal men don't behave like that. Normal men earn money. They don't steal it from their wives. Ethan sulked. So, I'm not normal. Not yet, but you can change if you want to. After dinner, I went to the bedroom and quietly started packing. I put into boxes what I would definitely need in the new apartment. Ethan was engrossed in communicating with potential buyers and didn't notice my activities. The next few days passed in a strange atmosphere. On one hand, Ethan genuinely started looking for work, went to interviews, sold unnecessary things, and even cleaned the apartment a couple of times. On the other hand, I felt he perceived what was happening as a temporary difficulty that would soon be resolved. On Wednesday, he came home beaming. "Sarah, I got the job," he announced from the doorway. "A sales consultant at a tech company. The pay isn't great, but it's just the beginning." "Congratulations," I said. "When do you start?" "Monday." "Imagine that, how wonderfully things are working out," he said. "Yes, truly wonderful, especially since I'm moving out on Monday." On Thursday, I took the documents to the new apartment and paid the deposit. The landlady gave me the keys. "Good luck in your new life," she said, "and don't regret the past. If a person drives you to divorce, they deserve it." On Friday evening, when Ethan went out to meet friends to celebrate his new job, I moved some of my things to the new apartment. The essentials, clothes, documents, cosmetics. The apartment greeted me with silence and freshness. I walked through the rooms, opened the windows, made tea. It would be good here. My new life would begin here. Ethan returned late, clearly, tipsy. His friends must have properly celebrated his employment. "Sarah!" he yelled, bursting into the bedroom. "Are you asleep? I have news for you." "What news?" I asked sleepily, though I wasn't asleep. "Vic says his uncle is starting a construction business. Maybe he'll take me on as a partner." "Oh no, not this again. Another project." "Ethan, you're starting your new job tomorrow." "Yeah, but that's not for long. I'll work for a month, save up some cash, and then we'll see." I turned to the wall. That was it. He hadn't changed. He hadn't understood anything. He was still living in illusions. Saturday morning, while Ethan was sleeping off last night's revelry, I moved the rest of my things. By lunchtime, everything was done. All that remained was to wait for him to wake up and announce my decision. Ethan got up at 1 p.m. looking disheveled and angry. He grumbled for a long time that his head hurt, there was nothing to drink, and I was walking around the apartment too loudly. "Coffee?" I asked. "Yes, and give me some aspirin." I placed a cup of coffee in front of him and sat opposite. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" he grumbled, rubbing his temples. "I'm leaving you." He looked up at me with bleary eyes. "What do you mean, leaving?" "Very simple. I'm moving into another apartment today, and I'm filing for divorce." Ethan put down his cup and stared at me. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely." "But why? I got a job. Everything's getting better." "Too late, Ethan." "Sarah, wait. Give me a chance. I'll change. You've had 3 years to change. You didn't." Ethan jumped up from the table. "Is this because of that card incident yesterday? Come on. Nothing serious happened." "Ethan, the card incident was just the last straw. I'm tired of being your ATM, tired of supporting a grown man, tired of listening to your endless promises. But I love you, and I don't love you anymore." Those words sounded harsh, but honest. I really no longer loved this infantile, irresponsible man. Ethan sat back down and buried his face in his hands. When did you stop loving me?" I thought about it. When exactly? Probably when I realized he would never change, that he would sit on my neck for the rest of his life and consider it normal. I don't remember exactly. It happened gradually, with every new project, with every promise you broke. But things are different now I went to work. Ethan, just yesterday, you were talking about Vic's uncle about a new business. You haven't changed. You're still living in illusions. But that's just an idea, a prospect. Exactly. The prospect of quitting your job for another harebrained scheme. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. Ethan looked up, tears in his eyes. "Sarah, please give me one more chance. The last one. I swear I'll change." "No, Ethan. No more chances." I stood up from the table and went to the hallway. My bag with the last of my things was there. "You'll receive the divorce papers from my lawyer," I said, putting on my jacket. "The apartment is yours. Don't ask me for alimony. Get a job yourself." "Sarah!" Ethan yelled, running into the hallway. "Don't go. We can talk about everything." "There's nothing more to discuss. Goodbye, Ethan." I walked out of the apartment and closed the door behind me. I could hear his voice, but I didn't look back. That was it. My new life had begun. The first few days in the new apartment flew by in a haze. I settled in, bought necessary odds and ends, got used to the quiet. And what blissful quiet it was, no one whining, no one complaining about life, no one building castles in the air at my expense. Ethan called every day. At first he begged me to come back, then he got angry. Then he begged again. I answered the first couple of times, politely explaining that my decision was final. Then I just started declining his calls. On Wednesday, Megan called. "Sarah, how are you settled in yet?" "Perfectly. You have no idea what a relief it is." "I'm so happy for you. How's Ethan reacting?" "As usual. At first he didn't believe I was serious, then he started calling, demanding explanations." "Did he start his job?" "Yes, can you believe it? He started working as a consultant on Monday. The pay is peanuts." "Well, it's something. Maybe he'll finally grow up." "I doubt it. He himself said it was temporary, until his next project." Megan sighed. "Yeah, a leopard doesn't change its spots, but you're free. That's the main thing." After talking to Megan, my mood lifted even more. Indeed, I was free. For the first time in 3 years, I could do what I wanted, spend money on myself without reporting to anyone. On Friday evening, as I was settling on the couch with a book and a cup of tea, there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the doorman downstairs should have announced visitors. Through the peephole, I saw Ethan. He was standing there with a bouquet of roses and a box of chocolates, nervously shifting from foot to foot. "Sarah, open up," he said. "I know you're home. I need to talk to you." I didn't answer. Let him stand there and then leave. "Sarah, please. I know I was wrong. Give me a chance to explain everything." He stood outside the door for about 20 minutes, then apparently realized I wasn't going to open it and left. He left the flowers on the doormat. The next day, the story repeated itself. Ethan came with a new bouquet and knocked for a long time. This time, he also brought a cake from an expensive bakery. "Sarah, what are you doing?" he pleaded. "We're adults. We can discuss everything calmly." I turned up the music louder and continued reading. Let him yell as much as he wanted. On Sunday, he showed up with flowers, a cake, and some other bags. "Sarah, I know you can hear me. Open the door. I have news. Good news." Curiosity got the better of me. I went to the door. "What news?" I asked without opening it. "Sarah," he exclaimed happily, hearing my voice. "Finally, listen, everything's working out for me. Work is going well. My boss praises me, and I've already saved up some money." "Ethan, so what?" "Well, what do you mean, so what? I told you I'd change. See, I'm changing. Changed in a week. Seriously." "Sarah, please give me a chance to prove it. Let's meet, talk like normal people." "No." "Why not? You can't just destroy our family like this." "Ethan, you destroyed the family. When you sat on my neck for 3 years, but I'm working now. You've been working for a week. That's not an indicator. Ethan fell silent, then asked, "What do I need to do for you to come back?" I thought about it. What should he do? Work steadily for at least a year, pay off all his debts, radically change his attitude towards life. Nothing, Ethan. There's nothing you can do. I don't want to live with you anymore. But why? For what? For 3 years of parasitism. For lies. For theft. Sarah, what theft? I spent my own money. There it was. He still didn't get it. He thought that if the money turned out to be his, then there was no problem. Ethan, your intentions were thieving. You wanted to steal my money. But I didn't steal it. You didn't steal it only because you mixed up the cards, and if you hadn't mixed them up, Ethan fell silent. Exactly, I said. You would have stolen it and not batted an eye. But I would have explained later, said it was for Mom. And you think that's an excuse, that it's okay to steal money from your wife if it's for your mom. Not steal, but take, we're family. Family is when you ask for permission, not when you sneak into someone's wallet. Ethan fell silent again, then said, "Okay, suppose I was wrong, but nothing terrible happened. Can't we just forgive and forget?" I shook my head, though he couldn't see me. "No, Ethan, we can't." "Why not?" "Because you don't understand what you did wrong. You think the problem is that you took without asking, but the problem is that you were ready to steal $10,000 from your wife." "Oh, come on, 10,000. That's not such a big deal." I gasped in indignation. Not such a big deal. $10,000, not a big deal. Ethan, for you, 10,000 isn't a big deal because you don't earn it. For me, that's 4 months of hard work when I was starting out. Well, you earn it now, don't you? What's the worry? Ethan, you're delusional. Go home. Sarah, wait. Let's meet somewhere in a cafe. Talk normally. No, and don't come back again or I'll call security. I moved away from the door and turned the TV on full blast. Ethan said something else for about 10 minutes, then left. The next day at work, I submitted an application to HR to change my last name, back to Peterson. I didn't want to be Miller anymore. On Tuesday evening, Ethan showed up again, this time without flowers, but with a large box. "Sarah," he yelled at the door. "I brought you a gift. Guess what?" I didn't answer. "A new laptop, the latest model. You said your old one was slow." I had indeed said that 6 months ago, and Ethan had promised to buy a new one as soon as he had money. "With what money did you buy it?" I couldn't resist asking. "I earned it," he replied proudly. "Honestly, earned it. See how I'm trying. Earned enough for a new laptop in 2 weeks on his salary. Well, not just salary, I have side hustles too." Side hustles? Interesting. What kind of side hustles allow you to save up for an expensive laptop in 2 weeks? What kind of side hustles? Various. I consult acquaintances on investments. I almost burst out laughing. He was consulting on investments, the man who had blown over $30,000 on his projects in 3 years. "Ethan, go home and take your laptop with you." "But it's a gift for you. I don't need anything from you." "Sarah, at least try it. See if you like it." "No." Ethan stood there a bit longer, then said, "Okay, I'll leave it by the door. Maybe you'll change your mind." I waited half an hour, then carefully peeked into the hallway. The box with the laptop was indeed by the door. I dragged it into the apartment not out of greed, but because I'd feel bad if it got stolen. The laptop turned out to be really good expensive, at least $1,500. Where did Ethan get that kind of money? I called Megan. "Hey, do you know what the salary is for a sales consultant at a tech company?" "Well, depends on the company. Usually $35,000, $45,000 a year for beginners. Why?" Ethan bought a laptop for $1,500 after 2 weeks of work. Seriously? And where did he get the money? Says he has side hustles, investment consulting. Megan laughed. Ethan, an investment consultant. The same Ethan who tanked all his projects, the very same. "Sarah, something's fishy here. Either the money isn't his or he's gotten himself into some kind of scam." I thought so too. Ethan was many things, but earning big money honestly was definitely not one of his talents. The next day I called his mother. "Linda, how are you? How are you feeling?" Oh, Sarah, dear, thanks for asking. Everything's fine. It's just Ethan's been acting strange lately. Strange? Yes, nervous, jumpy. He says you two had a fight. Is that true? I sighed. I'd have to tell her. Linda, we're divorced. I left him. Silence hung on the other end of the line. Divorced? Linda finally asked. Why? Because he leeched off me for 3 years, and because he was stealing money from my wallet. What money? Apparently, Ethan hadn't told his mom the whole truth about his generous gift. Linda, do you remember the gifts Ethan gave you for your birthday? Of course I remember such beautiful jewelry, cosmetics, a new phone. And do you know where he got the money to buy them? Well, Ethan said you picked them out together, that it was from both of you. Ah, so that's it. He was still lying to his mom. Linda, I didn't pick out any gifts. Ethan took a card from my wallet without permission and spent almost $10,000. $10,000. Linda was horrified. Exactly. Though it turned out he mistakenly took his own card, not mine. He spent his own money, but his intentions were thieving. Linda was silent for so long, I started to wonder if the call had dropped. Linda, can you hear me? I hear you, she replied quietly. Sarah, maybe you could talk to him. He must have realized his mistake. No, he hasn't. He still thinks he's only guilty of taking without asking. But he's working now, trying. He's been working for 2 weeks. That's not an indicator. Linda sighed. Sarah, are you sure? Maybe you'll give him another chance? Linda, I gave him chances for 3 years. I'm not giving any more. After talking to my mother-in-law, I felt a bit sad. Linda was a good woman, just loved her son too much, ready to justify any of his actions. In the evening, Ethan came again. This time he brought a gift certificate to a spa. Sarah, he yelled at the door, this is for your health. You get tired at work. I didn't even go to the door. I turned on music and started making dinner. Ethan yelled for about 30 minutes, then left. He slipped the certificate under the door. The next day I found out how much the services at that spa cost. The certificate was for $500, plus the laptop for $1,500. So in 3 days, Ethan had spent $2,000 on gifts for me. With a salary of maybe $3,000 a month, this looked more than strange. I decided to find out what was going on. I called the company where he worked, introduced myself as his wife, and asked to be connected to Ethan. I'm sorry, the secretary said, but Ethan Miller no longer works here. What do you mean no longer works? When did he leave? 3 days ago, he resigned. So that's it. He wasn't working anymore, but was telling me everything was great. I hung up and thought, where did the money for gifts come from then? And why was he lying about work? In the evening, I called Megan and told her about my discoveries. Sarah, this is very suspicious, she said. People don't just quit their jobs like that, especially when they have no money. That's what I think. Something's not right here. Maybe he got into something, some shady scheme. Very likely. You know how he's been lately, nervous, jumpy, and money appearing out of nowhere. Sarah, maybe you should find out more. What if he's in serious trouble? I thought about it. On one hand, I didn't care what Ethan got himself into. I'd left him. On the other hand, curiosity was getting the better of me. I'll try to find out something, I told Megan. The next day, I went to our former mutual friend, Victor, the one whose uncle was supposedly starting a construction business. Vic greeted me with surprise. Sarah, what brings you here? How are you? Fine. Listen, Vic, do you know what Ethan is up to these days? What he's not telling you. We're divorced. I left him. Vic whistled. Wow. And he said you two just had a fight. What was the reason for the divorce? I briefly told him the situation with the card and the 3 years of parasitism. I see. Vic nodded. Yeah, Ethan's quite a character, always coming up with some crazy stuff. And what has he come up with now? Vic hesitated. Sarah, why do you need to know you're divorced? Just curious. He's giving me expensive gifts, but he's supposedly unemployed. What gifts? A laptop for $1,500, a spa certificate for $500. Vic shook his head. Ethan, what are you doing? Vic, tell me what he's done. All right, fine. Just don't tell him I told you. Promise? Promise. Vic poured us some iced tea and began his story. Remember I told him about my uncle about the construction business? I remember. Well, my uncle did actually start a company, a small one, renovating offices, apartments, and he offered Ethan a job, not as a partner, of course, but as a regular project manager. And Ethan agreed, only he didn't want to actually work. He decided to get clever. How so? Simple. My uncle gave him a list of potential clients, told him to call them set-up meetings, and Ethan started working these clients himself, without my uncle. I felt things were taking an unpleasant turn. What do you mean, himself? Well, he tells them he's an independent contractor, that he can do the renovation cheaper than my uncle's company, takes a down payment, and nothing. Spends the money, doesn't do the work because he doesn't know how. I gasped. So that's where the money is coming from. Ethan is scamming people. Vic, that's fraud. Of course it's fraud. My uncle already knows. Clients started complaining, saying some Ethan Miller took their money and disappeared. And what about your uncle? What about him? He's furious. Says if Ethan doesn't return the money, he'll file a police report. How much did he take? I don't know exactly, but at least $15,000, $20,000. I felt a chill. So this is what my ex-husband was up to, scamming people and buying me gifts with stolen money. Vic, do you know how much time he has before the police report? My uncle gave him a week. Said if he doesn't return the money by Friday, he's going to the police. Today's Wednesday, so Ethan has 2 days left. I said goodbye to Vic and drove home. My head was spinning from the information. Ethan had turned into a real con artist, and yet he was still trying to win me back. What should I do? On one hand, I didn't care what happened to him. He brought it on himself. On the other hand, if he went to jail, innocent people he'd scammed would also suffer. I decided to wait until evening. If Ethan came, I'd talk to him. If not, then his problems were not my concern. Ethan arrived at 8 p.m., as usual with gifts, this time a bouquet of orchids and a box of luxury chocolates. "Sarah," he yelled at the door, "open up, I have very important news." I went to the door. "What news?" "Sarah, finally. Listen, everything's going great. Business is booming. I'll be making serious money soon." Business, he called fraud business. "Ethan, where are you getting the money to buy me gifts? I told you I'm earning at honest work. What honest work? You quit your job." Ethan fell silent. He clearly hadn't expected me to find out. "How did you know?" he finally asked. "I called your company. They said you resigned 3 days ago." "Well, yeah, I quit, but now I'm my own boss." "Ethan, I know what you're doing." "What do you know?" "I know you're scamming people, taking down payments for renovations and not doing the work." Silence again. "Ethan, do you hear me?" "I hear you," he replied quietly. "Who told you?" "It doesn't matter who. What matters is that it's true. Sarah, it's not what you think I really am going to do, the renovations. I'm just working out organizational issues right now." "What organizational issues?" "Ethan, you took the money and spent it on gifts for me. That's fraud. But I'm going to pay it back." "With what? How?" "Well, I'll find a way, borrow it somewhere." "Borrow from whom? Me? I won't give you anything." Ethan started crying. I could hear him sobbing behind the door. "Sarah, help me. I'm in serious trouble. You got yourself into it, you get yourself out. But they'll put me in jail. You deserve it." "Sarah, you can't just abandon me in my time of need." "I can and I will." Ethan wailed. "What am I going to do?" "What to do? Return the money to people before it's too late." "But I don't have it." "Where is it then?" "Spent it." "On what?" "On gifts for you and on something else." "What else, Ethan?" He was silent. "Ethan, what else?" I lost it at the casino," he replied quietly. I almost sat down from shock. The casino. He wasn't just scamming people. He was also gambling. "How much did you lose?" A lot." "How much on $5,000, he whispered. I closed my eyes. Well, well, well. My ex-husband turned out to be not just a con artist, but also a gambling addict. "Ethan, go home. Tomorrow, go to the police and confess everything. Maybe you'll get probation." Sarah, don't leave me. Give me money. I'll pay everything back. I won't give you a cent, and don't come back. I moved away from the door and turned on the TV. Ethan sobbed in the hallway for another half hour, then left. That was it. Now I was finally convinced I'd done the right thing by leaving him. Not only had he been a parasite for 3 years, but he'd also become a con artist and a gambling addict. Let him deal with his own problems. I had already sorted out my life. The next 2 days passed surprisingly calmly. Ethan didn't show up, didn't call, didn't text. He must have finally realized I was serious and wasn't going to help him. On Friday morning, as I was getting ready for work, Linda called. Her voice was anxious. "Sarah, dear, do you know where Ethan is? He was supposed to come over yesterday, but he didn't show up. And he's not calling." "I don't know, Linda. We're not in touch." "Are you really divorced? I was hoping you'd make up." "Really? And we're not making up. But why Ethan is such a good boy? A good boy. If only she knew what her good boy was up to." "Linda, do you know that Ethan quit his job?" "What quit? He said everything was fine. He says a lot of things. Not all of them are true." "Sarah, dear, what happened?" "Tell me." I sighed. Sooner or later, she'd find out anyway. "Linda, your son has become a con artist. He scams people, takes money for work he doesn't do." Silence on the other end. "It can't be," Linda finally whispered. "Ethan isn't capable of that." "He is capable, and he's already done it. Today is the deadline for him to return the money or they'll file a police report against him." "Oh my God, how much did he take?" "At least $20,000. Linda started crying. "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" "Do nothing. Let him answer for his actions. But they'll put him in jail. He deserves it." "Sarah, please help. Give him money. I'll pay you back somehow later." "Linda, I don't have that kind of money, and even if I did, I wouldn't give it. Ethan must be punished." "But he's your husband." "Ex-husband, and not for much longer as soon as the divorce is finalized." My mother-in-law burst into tears. I felt sorry for her, but I wasn't going to do anything. Ethan had brought this upon himself. At work all day, I thought about what was happening with Ethan. Had he really disappeared, or was he just hiding somewhere? In the evening, as I was getting ready for bed, there was a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw an unfamiliar man in a dark suit. "Who is it?" I asked. "Detective Miller, HPD. Open up, please." Using Miller as a common detective name not related to Ethan, my heart skipped a beat. Had something happened to Ethan, I opened the door. A man in his 40s with a tired face stood on the threshold. "Sarah Peterson." "Yes." "She's using her maiden name again." "Understood. May I come in? I need to talk to you." I let the detective into the apartment. He went into the living room, took out a notepad. "When was the last time you saw your ex-husband, Ethan Miller?" "Last Wednesday. He came by." "What happened?" "A report of felony fraud has been filed against him. We're looking for him, but he's disappeared." "Disappeared?" "Yes. Moved out of his apartment, took his things. Neighbors said they saw him 2 days ago with suitcases. So he ran, realized things were bad and bolted." "Do you have any idea where he might be?" "No idea. We're divorced." "When did you divorce?" "Last week. That is, we filed the papers. The divorce isn't officially finalized yet." The detective jotted in his notepad. "Tell me, did you know about your husband's activities?" "What activities?" "That he was defrauding clients, taking down payments for renovation work, and then disappearing." "I only found out 3 days ago." "From whom?" I told him about my conversation with Vic. The detective listened attentively and took notes. "And why did you divorce, if you don't mind me asking?" I briefly told him the story of the card and the 3 years of parasitism. "Understood." The detective nodded. "Tell me, does your ex-husband have any relatives, friends he might have turned to?" "His mother, Linda Miller, but she called me this morning looking for him." "Can you give me his mother's address?" I dictated the address. "Any friends, Victor Samuels. That's where I found out about the fraud. But it's unlikely Ethan would go to him. Vic's uncle is the one planning to file the report." "Anyone else?" I thought. Ethan didn't have many close friends, just a few acquaintances he met up with occasionally. Maybe Dennis Farrow. They sometimes went to the gym together, but I don't have his number. The detective wrote down the name. "Ms. Peterson, if your ex-husband contacts you, please let us know immediately. Here's my card." "All right. What's he facing with these amounts 3 to 7 years, depending on the circumstances?" After the detective left, I couldn't calm down for a long time. So Ethan had really run away, realized he was caught and hid. And I thought he was just lying low somewhere. I wondered where he could have gone. He shouldn't have much money in theory, lost it all at the casino and spent it on gifts. Unlikely to be enough for a long trip. Though, what if he didn't lose everything? What if he stashed some money away for a rainy day, Saturday morning? Megan called. "Sarah, are you aware the police are looking for your ex?" "I know. A detective came by yesterday." "Seriously, what did he say?" "That Ethan ran away, moved out of his apartment with his stuff." "Well, that's a twist. How are you doing?" "Fine. I honestly don't care anymore." "Sarah, what if he tries to contact you for help?" "I doubt it. I made it very clear I wouldn't help him." "Well, still be careful. A desperate person can do anything. After talking to Megan, I thought, what if Ethan really did try to contact me? What if he decided I was his only hope?" I checked the locks on my door, made a copy of my keys, and gave it to my neighbor, asking her to call the police immediately if anything happened. The whole weekend passed peacefully. Ethan didn't show up. I started to think he had indeed gone far away and wouldn't appear again. On Monday morning, as I was getting ready for work, the detective called. "Ms. Peterson, has your ex-husband contacted you?" "No. He hasn't contacted his mother either. We were at her place yesterday. She hasn't seen him." "Any leads?" "Not yet, but we'll find him. You can't get far without money." "And he definitely doesn't have money. According to the victim's testimonies, he spent it all." "On what?" "We're figuring that out." After the call, I went to work. The day passed as usual. Meetings, reports, plans. I tried not to think about Ethan and his problems. In the evening, as I was returning home, I saw a familiar figure by the entrance. Linda was sitting on a bench, her eyes red from crying. "Linda, what are you doing here?" She looked up at me, her eyes full of despair. "Sarah, finally, Ethan called." I stopped in my tracks. "When did he call?" "An hour ago. He says he's in trouble, that the police are looking for him." "Where is he?" "He didn't say. Only asked me to tell you he wants to meet." "Why?" "I don't know. He said he has something to tell you. Something very important." I thought, what could Ethan want to talk to me about? Probably ask for money or help again. "Linda, did he say where he wants to meet?" "He did. At that cafe where you first met. Serendipity Cafe. Tonight at 10 p.m. Serendipity Cafe. Indeed, that's where Ethan and I had met 3 years ago. A strange choice for a meeting with a fugitive con artist. "Linda, do you know why he wants this meeting?" "I don't know. He only said he has to explain something to you, that you'll understand when you know the truth." "The truth? What other truth? That he's a con artist and a gambling addict? I already knew that." "Sarah, please meet with him, my ex-mother-in-law begged. "Maybe you can help him turn himself in." I looked at my watch. 6:30, 3.5 hours until the meeting. "All right," I said, "I'll meet him, but I'm not helping." Linda was overjoyed and thanked me about 10 times. Then she left and I went up to my apartment. Why did Ethan want to meet? What could a fugitive criminal want to talk to his ex-wife about? And most importantly, was it dangerous? I called the detective and told him about Ethan's call. "Meet him," Detective Miller said, "but be careful and call me immediately after the meeting. Maybe you should send a unit. No, he might get spooked and run. Better if he tells you where he's hiding himself." Then I called Megan and asked her to be near the cafe around 10:30 just in case. At 9:45, I was at Serendipity Cafe. I chose a table in the corner with a good view of the whole room and the exit. I ordered coffee and waited. Ethan appeared exactly at 10 p.m. He looked terrible. Thin, unshaven, in wrinkled clothes. Fatigue and despair were written all over his face. He cautiously scanned the room, saw me, and approached the table. "Sarah," he said, sitting down opposite me. "Thanks for coming." "Talk fast. I don't have much time." Ethan ordered tea and was silent for a while, gathering his thoughts. "Sarah, I want to confess everything to you." Confess what else I already know. You're a con artist and a gambling addict. Not just that, about us, our marriage. I was surprised. What could he tell me about our marriage? Everything was clear. He'd been a parasite for 3 years. I'm listening? Ethan took a deep breath. Sarah, do you remember how we met? Of course I remember, at the company party. And do you remember what I told you then? I racked my brain. Ethan had said he was a sales manager, had good prospects, would soon get a promotion. I remember. So what? It was all a lie, Sarah. I'd already been unemployed for 6 months then. I had no money at all. I was crashing on a friend's couch. I stared at him. So he'd been lying to me from the very beginning of our acquaintance. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know the truth. I was initially looking for a woman who would support me. You seemed suitable. My breath caught in my throat, so it had all been an act from the start. So you deliberately married me so I would support you. Yes, Ethan replied quietly. I'm sorry. I leaned back in my chair. Everything was a blur in my head. So 3 years of marriage. It was one big lie. He never loved me. And feelings, I asked. Did you feel anything for me at all? Ethan paused. Habit, maybe. Some kind of attachment, but not love, Sarah. There was no love. I felt a lump rise in my throat, not from pain, but from humiliation. It turned out I'd lived with a man for 3 years who used me like a cash cow. Why are you telling me this? I whispered. Because I realized it was wrong, and because you deserve to know the truth. Very noble of you, I remarked sarcastically. Ethan leaned towards me. Sarah, I know this is despicable, but I want you to know. You're a good person. You deserve a much better man. Thanks for the compliment, I replied dryly. Anything else you want to say? Yes, about the card, the one I stole. What about it? Ethan looked me in the eyes. You knew from the very beginning it was my card, didn't you? I froze. How did he know? What do you mean? Sarah, don't pretend. You knew perfectly well I took my card, not yours, and you kept quiet, deliberately. My heart started pounding. Did he guess? What makes you say that? Simple. You're a smart woman. You couldn't have failed to realize the alerts were for my card. The card number was in the texts. I bit my lip. Indeed, the card number was there, and if I'd wanted to check whose card it was, I could have easily found out. So what? So you deliberately let me spend my money knowing I thought I was spending yours. Ethan leaned back. You know, Sarah, when I figured that out, I was actually impressed. You punished me very elegantly. Let me spend my own savings thinking I was stealing from you. I was silent, not knowing what to say. Tell me honestly, Ethan continued. You knew from the morning it was my card, right? I looked him in the eyes. Why lie? It was all over anyway. Yes, I said. I knew, and I deliberately kept quiet. Deliberately? Ethan nodded. Understood. Why didn't you say anything right away? And why should I have? You were so eager to spend my money. So you spent it. It just turned out to be yours. It was a trap. No, not a trap. I just didn't interfere with justice. Ethan smirked. Justice? Yes, I suppose it was fair. We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked, why did you tell me all this about using me from the start? I don't know. Conscience, maybe. Realized I'd done too many nasty things in my life. And what will you do now? Ethan shrugged. Turn myself in, I guess. Can't last long anyway. No money, no friends, no job. Then why did you run away? Got scared. Thought I could hide somewhere, wait it out. But I realized it was stupid. Where did you go? To an old college buddy in Nevada, but he wouldn't take me in. Said he didn't want trouble with the police. I nodded. Logical. Ethan, where's the money? The money you took from clients. Spent it, all of it. On what? I told you. Lost it at the casino, spent it on gifts for you. Bought a few other things. What other things? Ethan looked embarrassed. Clothes. An expensive watch. Thought I'd impress you. I shook my head. He hoped to win me back until the very end. How much did you spend in total? $22, $500? I remember exactly. And nothing's left. Nothing. Spent the last of it on a bus ticket to Nevada. I looked at my watch. 10:30. Time to end the conversation. What's next, Ethan? Tomorrow, I'll go to the police, turn myself in, tell them everything. Good. Ethan stood up. Sarah, forgive me for everything. I was a bad husband. You weren't a husband, Ethan. You were a con artist from the very beginning. He nodded and headed for the exit. At the door, he turned around. Sarah, will you ever forgive me? I thought. I don't know, Ethan. Maybe in time. But I'll never be able to forget. He nodded and left the cafe. I remained seated, processing what I'd heard. So everything was a lie from the start. Ethan never loved me, just used me. And I lived in an illusion for 3 years thinking we had a real marriage. It was good that it was over. Good that I knew the truth. Even if it was late, I knew. I paid for my coffee and left. Megan was waiting for me outside. How did it go? She asked. Okay, I replied. He's going to turn himself in. And that's it. Not entirely. He told me some interesting things about our marriage. I told Megan about Ethan's confession. She listened in horror. Oh my God, Sarah, he used you for 3 years. It's okay, I said. At least now I know the truth, and I'll never blame myself for the divorce again. You did the right thing leaving him. Can you imagine what would have happened if you'd stayed? I imagined. Ethan would have continued to use me, lie, spend my money. Maybe sooner or later he would have sunk into fraud anyway. I didn't want to imagine. The main thing was that it was all behind me. We walked to my building. Megan left and I went upstairs. At home, I called the detective and told him about my meeting with Ethan. He says he'll turn himself in tomorrow, I reported. All right, where is he now? I don't know, I didn't ask. Okay, we'll wait until tomorrow. If he doesn't show up, we'll continue the search. After talking to the police, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea. Outside, it was a warm May night. Stars were shining. I thought about how strangely life sometimes turns out. 3 years ago, I considered myself a happily married woman. It turned out I was living with a con artist who was just using me. But you know what? I wasn't in pain. More like relief. Now I knew for sure I'd done the right thing, that Ethan deserved neither my love nor my money nor my time. And the card incident. Yes, I really did know from the beginning he was spending his own money, and I really did keep quiet on purpose. I wanted to see how far he would go in his audacity. And I wasn't mistaken. He went as far as attempted theft. Justice triumphed in the most unexpected way. Ethan punished himself by spending his own savings on gifts for his mother. And now he would have to answer for fraud. And that was fair too. I finished my tea and went to bed. Tomorrow was a new day, a new life without lies, without parasites, without illusions. A life in which I would finally be truly free. In the morning, a phone call woke me. It was 6:30. Too early for calls. It was Detective Miller. Ms. Peterson, your ex-husband hasn't shown up. We're continuing the search. Understood. What if he's left the city altogether? We're checking all possibilities. By the way, do you remember if he has a passport? I thought. Ethan did have a passport. We were planning a trip to Mexico about 2 years ago, but ended up not going because of another one of his projects. Yes, he does, but I don't remember when it expires. We'll check. If it's valid, he could have crossed the border. After talking to the detective, I couldn't fall back asleep for a long time. Had Ethan really skipped town? Though what money would he use? He didn't have any. At work, it was hard to concentrate. My thoughts kept returning to yesterday's conversation with Ethan, especially his words about initially looking for a female sponsor. How naive I had been. For 3 years, I believed in love made plans for the future, and he was just using me as an ATM. And he played his role masterfully. Flowers, compliments, promises. Around lunchtime, Linda called. Sarah, dear, did Ethan meet with you yesterday? He did. And what did he say? That he was going to turn himself into the police. Then why hasn't he done it yet? I don't know, Linda. Maybe he changed his mind. My ex-mother-in-law started crying into the phone. What will happen to him? What will happen to my boy? I felt sorry for her. No matter what a mother feels for her son. Linda, maybe he'll still show up. Don't despair prematurely. Sarah, dear, will you ever forgive him? I sighed. The same question Ethan himself had asked yesterday. Time will tell. The wound is still fresh. He's such a fool. Why did he do all this? Yes, a fool, just not in the sense his mother thought. A fool because he got caught. Otherwise, a pretty calculating con artist. After work, I went to the bank to get a new debit card. The one I had brought up unpleasant associations. Ethan had touched it when he was rummaging through my wallet. At the bank, I met a familiar woman from a neighboring department at my company. Sarah? Hi, how are you? Fine, Olivia, and you? Everything's great. Listen, is it true the police are looking for your husband? I was surprised. How did she know? Where did you hear that? Oh, Tanya from accounting was saying, says her friend works at that company where your husband scammed clients. Understood. The grapevine works faster than the internet. It's true, I confirmed. They're looking for him. Wow. And how are you holding up? We're divorced. I don't care what happens to him. Olivia shook her head sympathetically. I understand. It must be hard to find out your husband is a con artist. Very hard, but I'll get through it. After the bank, I went home. I wanted to be alone to process everything that had happened. A surprise awaited me at home. An envelope lay under the door. No signature, no return address. Inside was a letter from Ethan. Sarah. If you're reading this, it means I'm already far away. Don't look for me and don't let others look for me. I've decided to start a new life somewhere else. I know I'm acting like a coward, but I can't do it any other way. I don't want to sit in prison. I couldn't handle it there. Once again, I apologize for everything. For the lies, for the deceit, for using you. You didn't deserve it. I'll return the money to people someday. I'll find a way. I give you my word. Be happy. You're a good woman and deserve a much better man. Ethan. I reread the letter several times. So he had run away after all. Didn't find the courage to answer for his actions, though that was quite in his spirit. In 3 years of marriage, he had never taken responsibility for his failures. He always found someone else to blame. The market was unfavorable. Partners let him down, or I didn't support him. I called the detective and told him about the letter. Bring the letter in, Detective Miller said. Maybe the experts will find something. For now, we consider him a fugitive from justice. And what does that mean, sir? A nationwide search, possibly an international one if it turns out he crossed the border. In the evening, Megan came over. I showed her the letter. What a coward, my friend fumed. Robbed people and ran off. Yeah, didn't have the guts. Sarah, how are you not upset? I honestly thought about my feelings. Am I upset? No. More like relief. Now I know for sure I'll never see him again. And rightly so. People like that don't change. He'll be deceiving others his whole life. We drank some wine and talked about the future. Megan suggested we go somewhere on vacation. Beaches, some new experiences. Good idea, I agreed. I haven't been anywhere in a long time. Maybe Greece or Italy. Why not? I have unused vacation time. We started planning the trip. For the first time in a long time, I wanted something pleasant, entertaining. The next day at work, I submitted my vacation request. Michael Patterson approved it without question. Get some rest, Sarah. I can see you need a reset. On Friday, the detective called. Your ex-husband did indeed leave the country. He crossed the border into Mexico by bus the day before yesterday evening. And then, what? Then the trail goes cold. From Mexico, he could have gone anywhere in Latin America, or even further. It's hard to track without documents. Then, does he have money for such trips? Apparently he does. So he didn't spend everything as he claimed. I wasn't surprised. Ethan always lied. He probably stashed some money away for a rainy day. On Saturday, Megan and I bought tickets to Cancun. 2 weeks in Mexico. A good hotel excursions. Exactly what I needed to restore my peace of mind. Departure in a week. Just enough time to finish things at work and mentally prepare for the vacation. On Sunday morning, my mom called. Sarah, honey, how are you? You haven't called in a while. Everything's fine, Mom. Working, settling into the new apartment. And how's Ethan? Did he find a job? I sighed. I had only told my parents about the divorce, not the details. Mom, we're divorced. I left him. What divorced when? A month ago, I got tired of supporting him. Mom gasped. Honey, what happened? Tell me in detail. I had to tell her the whole story, the 3 years of parasitism, the stolen card, the fraud. Mom listened silently, occasionally gasping. "Oh my God, Sarah, why didn't you say anything? We would have helped." "Mom, I handled it myself. The main thing is that it's all behind me." "And where is he now?" "Fled the country. The police are looking for him." "Oh, the scoundrel, how could he?" Dad, hearing the news, reacted more emotionally. "I always said that guy was no good," he yelled into the phone. "Shifty eyes, weak handshake. You could tell right away he was a crook." "Dad, don't yell. It's all over." "Sarah, how are you? Not too upset. Maybe you'll come visit us at the lake house." "Thanks, Dad, but I have a vacation planned. I'm flying to Cancun." "Good for you. Relax, unwind. Just watch out you don't pick up some other freeloader there." I laughed. Dad always knew how to lift my spirits. On Monday at work, I found out that the story with Ethan had become known to many. Colleagues were sympathetic, offered help, shared similar stories. It turned out there were quite a few con artist husbands. One woman said her ex-husband had stolen her credit card and spent the money at a strip club. Another said her husband took out a loan in her name without her knowledge. "Men these days are completely shameless," said Olivia from the neighboring department. "They think women are obligated to support them." "Not all of them are like that," I countered. "It's just that normal men are harder to come by." Midweek, Linda called. "Sarah, dear, do you know where Ethan might be?" "Linda, he left the country. The police have already established that." "Left where?" "I don't know where. He left via Mexico." My ex-mother-in-law started crying. "Oh my God, what is he doing? Why did he run away?" "He didn't want to answer for his actions." "Sarah, dear, if he shows up, tell him his mother loves him and is waiting for him." "Linda, he's unlikely to show up. At least not in the coming years." "Why?" "Because he'll be tried in absentia. And if he returns, he'll be arrested immediately." After talking to my ex-mother-in-law, I felt sad. Still, I felt sorry for the elderly woman. She sincerely loved her son, not understanding what kind of person he was. On Thursday, the detective reported new details. "Your ex-husband has been placed on an international wanted list. Interpol has been notified." "Is there any chance of finding him?" "There is, but it's small. If he's smart, he's already changed his documents." "And will there be a trial?" "Yes, in absentia. The victims are demanding compensation for damages." "Will they demand anything from me?" "We're not officially divorced yet." "No, you are not responsible for his debts, especially since at the time the crimes were committed, you were already effectively separated." Friday was my last workday before vacation. My colleagues, through a small farewell, wished me a good rest. "Forget all the bad stuff there," Olivia said. "Come back refreshed." "Definitely," I promised. In the evening at home, I packed my suitcase. Summer dresses, swimsuits, sandals, all the things I hadn't used in a long time. In 3 years with Ethan, we had hardly traveled anywhere. Either there was no money or he was busy with another project, and now I was going alone, well with a friend, but without a husband. And you know what, I liked it. Saturday morning, a taxi took us to the airport. My new adventure had begun. Mexico greeted us with hot sun and a sea breeze. The hotel was wonderful. Cozy rooms, a pool, the beach, a 5-minute walk away. The first few days we just slept and sunbathed. Then we started going on excursions, ancient ruins, picturesque villages, tequila distilleries. "Sarah, you've somehow transformed," Megan said on the 3rd day. "You look 5 years younger." And indeed, I felt renewed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. On the 5th day of our vacation, as we were sitting in a taverna on the beach, I received a message from the detective. "Ethan M. sentenced in absentia to 4 years. Probation unlikely if apprehended. Case closed." I showed the message to Megan. "That's it, full stop," she said. "It's officially over now." "Yes," I agreed. Finally. We raised our glasses of local wine. To new lives. The sun was setting into the sea, painting the water gold. Somewhere, Mexican music was playing. Children were laughing, couples in love, strolled along the beach. And I, for the first time in a long time, felt truly free. The remaining days of vacation passed like a fairy tale. We swam, sunbathed, walked through ancient streets, tried local cuisine. I even met a nice Italian guy, Marco, who worked as a tour guide. Nothing serious between us, just pleasant conversation, walks light flirting. But even that was nice. I felt like I remembered what it was like to be a woman, not just a source of income. "Maybe you'll stay another week," Marco suggested on the last day. "No, thank you. I have to get back to work." "Then come visit again. I'll be waiting." I smiled, but promised nothing. We'll see what happens. On the plane home, I thought about how much had changed in these months. The morning Ethan stole the card, I was a married woman with problems. Now I was free, independent, confident. Of course, it was painful to learn I'd lived in deceit for 3 years, that my husband had used me from the very beginning. But on the other hand, this knowledge freed me from guilt. I wasn't to blame for our marriage failing. I wasn't to blame for Ethan becoming a con artist. I just fell for a professional deceiver's act. But now I knew what to look out for. I would never support anyone again. I would never believe anyone's words blindly again. The plane landed in my home city late in the evening. A taxi drove me home. I went up to my apartment, turned on the light. Silence, peace. No one whining, no one complaining, no one making plans at my expense. I opened the balcony door, looked out at the street. The city lived its life. Lights burned, cars drove by, music played somewhere. And I was home, in my own life, which I had built myself. And it was wonderful. Tomorrow I go to work. The day after I meet up with friends. On the weekend I plan to visit my parents. The ordinary life of an ordinary woman. But an honest life, without lies and deceit. I closed the balcony and went to unpack my suitcase. A new chapter of my life had already begun. 6 months later. 6 months had passed since Ethan disappeared from my life. 6 months of calm stability and surprising inner peace. I hadn't even realized how possible it was to live without constant tension, without the need to control every penny, without the fear that my husband would get into trouble again. Work was going great. After my vacation in Mexico, I returned full of energy and new ideas. Michael Patterson even offered me a promotion, head of the audit department in the company's new branch. The salary increased by half, plus a benefits package and a company car. "Sarah, you're showing excellent results," he said at the meeting. "Besides, after all your personal trials, you've only become stronger. That's a valuable quality for a leader." I accepted without hesitation. The new position meant more responsibility, but also more opportunities, and most importantly, complete financial independence and confidence in the future. My personal life was also starting to look up. Not that I was actively looking for someone. I just became more open to communication. Marco from Mexico sometimes sent photos of beautiful sunsets and invited me to return. Nice, but not serious. But then Andrew appeared, a colleague from our company's legal department. We met at a corporate event celebrating my appointment, tall, calm, with intelligent eyes and a pleasant smile. Divorced, raising a school-age daughter. "You know, Sarah," he said to me then, "I heard your story. I admire your strength of spirit." "I just had to survive," I replied. "It's not just that. Many people break in such situations, but you became even stronger." We started seeing each other occasionally. Coffee after work, movies on weekends, walks in the park. We weren't rushing anywhere, not promising anything, just enjoying each other's company. Andrew was the complete opposite of Ethan, reliable, honest, with firm principles. He worked hard, supported his child, helped his elderly parents, and never complained about life, never built castles in the air, never asked for money. "How does your daughter feel about you dating?" I asked him once. "Katie is a wise girl," he said. "She says, 'Dad, the main thing is that the lady is nice and doesn't try to replace Mom.' Her mother had died of cancer 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Thank you. It was tough, but we managed. We became even closer." I understood that this was a serious man who didn't play games. If he was dating a woman, he considered her a potential life partner. This was both attractive and a little scary. After everything with Ethan, I wasn't ready for a serious relationship yet, but I didn't want to close myself off from the possibility of happiness either. In October, something happened that made me reconsider many things. Linda called. "Sarah, dear." Her voice was agitated. "Ethan has surfaced." I almost dropped the phone. "What surfaced? Where?" "He called me yesterday. Says he's living in Spain now, working in a Russian restaurant." Spain, well, he'd landed on his feet the fugitive con artist. What else did he say? That he misses home, wants to come back, but he's afraid. "Sarah, dear, what will happen if he returns? He'll be arrested immediately. He has a suspended sentence, but he didn't serve it abroad. Upon returning to the U.S., it automatically becomes real time." Linda started crying. "So he'll never come back?" "Unlikely. At least not in the coming years." "And you? Have you forgiven him?" I thought. Had I forgiven him? Honestly, I hardly thought about him. Ethan had become part of the past, a closed chapter. "Linda, I don't hold any anger towards him, but I don't have warm feelings either. He's like a stranger to me." "I understand. And if he came back and asked for forgiveness, nothing would change. Too much water under the bridge." After talking to my ex-mother-in-law, I thought about Ethan for a long time. I wondered how he was doing. Lonely, probably working as a waiter or dishwasher in a foreign country, barely knowing the language. On one hand, he deserved it. He chose this fate. On the other hand, I still felt a twinge of pity. Whatever kind of scoundrel he was, we had lived together for 3 years. Though should I pity him? He consciously committed crimes, deceived people, stole their money, and then ran away instead of at least trying to compensate for the damage. No, I decided. I won't pity him. Everyone is responsible for their actions. In November, it was my birthday. 36. I decided to celebrate with close friends and family. I invited my parents, Meg and Andrew, and his daughter, and a few colleagues from work. The party was a success. We sat in a nice restaurant, laughed, told stories, shared plans. Katie Andrews' daughter turned out to be a wonderful girl. Smart, well-mannered, with a good sense of humor. "Sarah," she said to me at the end of the evening, "can I call you Aunt Sarah?" "Of course you can." "And you don't mind that Dad has a daughter. Some women don't like other people's children." I smiled. The child's directness was disarming. "Katie, you're a wonderful girl, and I'd be happy if we became friends." Andrew looked at me gratefully. It was clear his daughter's opinion was very important to him. "You know Sarah," he said, when we were alone. "Katie rarely warms up to someone so quickly. Maybe we have similar personalities." "Perhaps. Or maybe it's because you're a sincere person. Children feel that." After my birthday, my relationship with Andrew became closer. We started seeing each other more often. Sometimes I'd go to their place, help Katie with her homework, cook dinner for everyone. It was an amazing feeling, to be needed not as a source of money, but as a person. Andrew valued my opinion, consulted me about work, shared his plans. Katie told me about school, asked for help with math, shared her girlish secrets. I realized I was gradually becoming part of their family, and I liked it. In December, Detective Miller unexpectedly called me. "Ms. Peterson, I have news regarding your ex-husband's case." "What news?" "He's been detained in Spain at Interpol's request." "The issue of extradition is currently being decided." I sank into a chair. "So they found Ethan. And what does that mean?" "If extradited, he'll be brought here. There will be a trial, a real one, not an absentia. And if they don't extradite him, then he'll serve his time there. But they'll most likely hand him over to us. Spain cooperates on such matters." After talking to the detective, I felt a strange emptiness. I should have been happy. Justice had triumphed. But for some reason, my heart felt heavy. I told Andrew the news. "How do you feel about this?" he asked. "I don't know. On one hand, he should answer for his actions. On the other, I feel sorry for him. That's natural. 3 years of your life is no joke." "No, it's not that. He's just so helpless, like a child who's made a mess, and now doesn't know what to do." Andrew thought for a moment. "You know, Sarah, there are people who remain children their whole lives. They don't want to grow up, take responsibility. They can be charming, but are irresponsible. And sooner or later, it ends in tragedy. You're probably right. The main thing is that you realized it in time and left. Otherwise, he would have dragged you down with him." Yes, Andrew was right. If I had stayed with Ethan, I'd be dealing with his debts now, sitting in court hearings, maybe even become an accomplice to his crimes. On New Year's Eve, Andrew, Katie, and I were decorating the Christmas tree in their apartment. The girl hung ornaments and told their stories. "Mommy and I made this star when I was 5, she said carefully, placing a handmade decoration on a branch. "It's beautiful," I said. "Mommy was very good," Katie added. "But you're good too, Aunt Sarah. Dad started smiling more when he met you." Andrew coughed, embarrassed. "Katie, don't embarrass Sarah." "What's embarrassing about it? It's the truth." Later that evening, when Katie was in bed, Andrew and I sat in the kitchen with tea talking about life. "Sarah," he said suddenly, "are you afraid to trust a man again?" I thought. "I am. After Ethan, it's hard to believe there are honest men." "I understand, but you know what? Not all men are like that. There are normal ones, too. Like you, for example." "I try to be normal." He smiled. "Though there are no perfect people." "Andrew, what do you feel for me?" He looked at me seriously. "I love you, Sarah, and I want us to be together, officially." My heart pounded. I had expected this conversation, but I was still nervous. "And Katie adores you. Yesterday, she asked when you're going to become her mom." "Not her mom. I don't want to replace her mother, just a close person." "Of course she understands that." I stood up and went to the window. Snow was falling outside. New Year's lights twinkled. People hurried with gifts. "Andrew, I need time to think." "How much time?" "I don't know. Maybe a month, maybe more." "All right, I'll wait." In January, news came about Ethan. Spain had agreed to extradition. He was due to be brought to our city within a week. "You'll have to testify," the detective warned, "as an injured party." Injured, but he didn't steal my money. Formally, he did. The fact that the card turned out to be his doesn't matter. The intent was criminal. Interesting. So I was still a victim, even though I hadn't actually lost anything. The day Ethan was due to arrive, I went to work as usual. I didn't want to sit at home thinking about the past. In the evening, the detective called. "Your ex-husband has arrived. The first court hearing is tomorrow. I hope you can make it." "I'll be there." That night, I dreamed of Ethan, young, handsome, the way I remembered him at the beginning of our relationship. He smiled, gave me flowers, promised happiness. Then his face turned angry, predatory, and he reached for my wallet. I woke up in a cold sweat. In the morning, getting ready for court, I spent a long time choosing clothes. I wanted to look dignified, but not provocative. I settled on a smart gray suit and a white blouse. Andrew offered to take me. "I don't want you to go there alone." "Thanks, but I can handle it." "I know you can. I just want to be nearby." We drove to the courthouse together. At the entrance, he kissed my cheek. "Good luck. I'll be waiting in the cafe across the street." The courtroom was small, half-empty. A few victims, the people Ethan had scammed, a lawyer, a prosecutor, a clerk, and then they brought him in. I didn't recognize Ethan at first. He had lost a lot of weight, aged his hair was almost completely gray. His face bore the stamp of exhaustion and hopelessness. Our eyes met. He blinked in surprise, apparently not expecting to see me. Then he lowered his head. The judge read out the charges. Fraud on a particularly large scale. Ethan pleaded guilty to all charges. "Defendant, do you have anything to say to the victims?" the judge asked. Ethan stood up. "I want to apologize to everyone I deceived. I understand I caused you pain and financial loss. If I ever have the opportunity, I will definitely compensate for the damages." His voice trembled. It was clear he was genuinely remorseful. Then the victims' testimonies began. People told how Ethan had deceived them, how much money they had lost, what problems it had created. An elderly woman cried, saying she had given him her last savings for a bathroom renovation. A middle-aged man said that because of Ethan, he couldn't renovate his office on time and lost a major client. A young mother said she wanted to update the nursery for her second child. All these stories painted a sad picture. Ethan had ruined many people's plans, caused them real harm. Finally, it was my turn. "Sarah Peterson, please tell us about your relationship with the defendant and the incident with the credit card." I stood up and looked at Ethan. He sat with his head bowed, not looking up. "We were married for 3 years," I began. "Lately our relationship was difficult. Ethan wasn't working, I was supporting him. And on the day of the card incident, he took it from my wallet without permission and spent a large sum of money. Tell me, do you consider yourself a victim?" I thought. "Do I formally?" Yes. He wanted to steal my money. Factually, no. He spent his own. "Your Honor, I believe I suffered moral damages. To find out your husband is ready to rob you is hard." "Understood, and there was no material damage." "No. He mistakenly took his own card, not mine." A surprised murmur went through the courtroom. Apparently, many didn't know this detail. "So the defendant spent his own money?" "Yes, but he thought he was spending mine." The judge nodded. "Thank you. You may be seated." I sat down. Ethan finally raised his head and looked at me. Gratitude was readable in his eyes, apparently for not blackening his name further. The hearing continued for another hour. The prosecutor spoke demanding 3 years of actual prison time. The defense attorney asked for a suspended sentence, citing sincere remorse and difficult life circumstances. Finally, the judge retired to deliberate. During the recess, Ethan approached me. "Sarah, thank you for telling the truth," he said quietly. "What else was I supposed to do? Lie? You could have embellished, portrayed me in a worse light." I looked at him closely. He had really changed, become more mature, perhaps. That childish irresponsibility that had irritated me so much was gone. "Ethan, do you understand what you've done?" "I understand. I think about it every day." "And what do you plan to do next?" "I don't know. Serve my time if they give it. Try to find a job. Pay back the debts." "And your mother? How is she?" "Mom, she forgave me. But I see how much pain she's in. I destroyed her image of me." We were silent for a moment. "Sarah, and you, have you forgiven me?" I thought. Had I? There was no anger, really. Only regret for the wasted time. "Ethan, I don't wish you ill, but you can't be a close person to me anymore. Too much has happened." He nodded. "I understand. Do you have someone?" "I do, a good man, a very good man." "Then I'm happy for you." The judge returned. The sentence 2 years in a minimum security correctional facility, plus restitution for material damages. Ethan listened to the verdict standing, didn't cry, didn't protest, just nodded, accepting his punishment. After the verdict was announced, I left the courtroom. Andrew was waiting for me at the exit. "How did it go?" "They gave him 2 years in a correctional facility." "And you?" "It was a bit hard, but it needed to be endured." We walked down the street in silence. I thought about how this story had finally closed. Ethan received his punishment. I gave my testimony. The end. "Sarah," Andrew said suddenly, "I want to tell you something." "What?" "I saw how you talked to your ex-husband. You were gentle with him, humane. Not angry, not vengeful. That's worth a lot. What else could I do? He's already punished. Many women in your place would have tried to get revenge on him, but you remained a decent person." I stopped and looked at Andrew. "You know what? I'm ready to give you an answer." "What answer?" "To your proposal. Yes, I want to be with you. Officially." Andrew hugged me right there in the middle of the street. Seriously, life's too short to waste it on doubts." He kissed me, and I knew I had made the right decision. This man would never betray me, never deceive me, never try to use me. In the evening, we told Katie about our decision. The girl was ecstatic. "Finally," she exclaimed. "I was starting to think you'd never get married." "And you're not against it?" I asked. "Why would I be against it? You two are good for each other." Out of the mouths of babes. We decided to have a small wedding in the summer with close friends and family without pomp and show. Just a celebration of the beginning of a new life. And for now, I had to get used to the idea that I was getting married again. But this time, to the right person. 1 year later. A year had passed since Ethan was sent to the correctional facility. A year of measured, calm life. I married Andrew in August. A quiet ceremony at City Hall. A small celebration at a restaurant with our closest loved ones. Katie was our witness and beamed with happiness all day. We moved into a new 3-bedroom apartment big enough for our family. Katie had her own room. Andrew and I had ours plus a living room and a spacious kitchen where we loved to gather in the evenings. Work was fulfilling. The new department I headed was showing excellent results. The team was friendly, projects were interesting, management was pleased. I even started thinking about getting an additional degree in management. With Andrew, we had a wonderful relationship. There wasn't that stormy passion I once felt for Ethan, but there was reliability, understanding, mutual respect. We were a team in everything, raising Katie, managing the household, planning the future. Katie had completely accepted me. She called me by my first name, but treated me like a very close person. She told me about school, asked for advice on girly things, even sometimes complained about her dad when he was too strict. "Sarah, don't you want your own children?" she asked one evening while we were making dinner. I thought. I did want children, but I was afraid. What if something went wrong? What if Katie got jealous? I do. I answered honestly. Are you against it? Why would I be? I want a little brother or sister. It'll be more fun. Andrew and I had talked about this too. He also wanted more children, but wasn't rushing me. When you're ready, we'll think about it, he'd say. The main thing is that you want it yourself. In October, Linda unexpectedly called. Her voice was agitated. "Sarah, dear, do you know they released Ethan from the facility?" "What? How released?" "I don't know. He came home yesterday, says he was released early for good behavior." I sank onto a chair. Ethan was free, but only a year had passed. "Linda, are you sure he was officially released?" Of course, he came home, showed some documents. After talking to my ex-mother-in-law, I called Detective Miller. "Ms. Peterson, yes, Ethan M. was indeed released early for exemplary conduct and full restitution of damages to the victims." Restitution? But he didn't have any money. Apparently he acquired some. He transferred the full amount to the court's account a month ago, $22,500. Interesting. Where did Ethan get that kind of money? Wages in correctional facilities are minimal. And isn't he required to report somewhere? No, the conditions of his sentence have been fully met. He's a free man. In the evening, I told Andrew about it. "Are you worried?" he asked. "No. I don't know why he came back to this city. Maybe he just wanted to come home. It's his hometown, after all." "Possibly. Just hope he doesn't try to contact me. And if he does, I'll tell him I have a new life and ask him not to bother me." Ethan showed up a week later. He called my work phone. "Sarah, hi, it's Ethan." His voice was calm, confident, not at all like in court. "Hi, I heard you were released." "Yeah, I want to meet with you, talk." "Talk about what we've said, everything." "I have something important, something you should know." More secrets. However, curiosity got the better of me. All right, but in a public place and not for long. Of course, Serendipity Cafe today at 7. The same cafe where we met a year and a half ago, symbolic. Okay. I warned Andrew about the meeting. He didn't object, but asked me to be careful. "If anything, call me right away. I'll come and get you." "Don't worry, it's just a conversation." I arrived at the cafe first, chose the same corner table, ordered coffee, and waited. Ethan appeared exactly at 7:00 p.m. I didn't recognize him at first. He had changed dramatically. Fit tanned in a well-fitting suit, hair neatly cut, face fresh. Not at all like the tormented man I saw in court. "Sarah," he said, sitting down opposite me. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." "You look good," I noted. "The facility did you good." He smirked. "You could say that. I rethought a lot there." "And what did you rethink?" "My whole life. Realized I was a complete idiot." Ethan ordered tea and was silent for a while, gathering his thoughts. "Sarah, I want to tell you something about that card incident. We've already discussed everything. You wanted to steal my money but mixed up the cards." "Not exactly." I was surprised. "What do you mean, not exactly?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Sarah, I didn't mix up the cards. I knew perfectly well I was taking my own." I stared at him. "What? How did you know?" "Simple. I put it there myself. Remember you gave me your card for groceries, and I slipped mine into your wallet for safekeeping." "I remember. So what?" "So, I remembered which compartment I put it in." And when I went into your wallet in the morning, I deliberately took my own card. My breath caught. So you knew from the very beginning you were spending your own money. Of course I knew. But why? Why lie to me that you took my card? Ethan paused, then said, because I wanted to test your reaction. What reaction? Sarah, I saw our marriage was falling apart, that you didn't love me anymore. So I decided to conduct an experiment. I didn't understand where he was going with this. What experiment? I wanted to see what you would do if you found out your husband had stolen $10,000 from you. Would you forgive me or would you leave? I felt like I'd been punched. So you deliberately staged a performance, spent your own money, told me you took my card and watched my reaction. But you didn't know that. I knew your card number, did you? And you knew. I fell silent. Indeed, I had also kept quiet, knowing the truth. I knew, I admitted quietly. See, we were both playing the same game. You knew I was spending my money, but kept quiet, thinking I thought I was spending yours. And I knew I was spending my own, but said I was spending yours to see your reaction. My head was spinning from this logic. Ethan, but why did you need all this? To understand if it was worth fighting for our marriage. If you had forgiven me the theft of $10,000, it would mean you still loved me. And if you left, well, then it was over. I leaned back in my chair. And you got your answer. I did, you left, so there was no love anymore. Ethan, but it wasn't just about the card. 3 years of parasitism, lies, irresponsibility. I know, I was a complete nobody back then. I'm not making excuses now. We were silent. I tried to digest what I'd heard. Ethan and the fraud with the clients. Was that also an experiment? No, that was stupidity. When you left me, I broke down, started drinking, got into debt, and then decided to make quick money, and ended up committing a crime. And where did the money come from to compensate for the damages? Ethan smiled. In the facility I worked, in a sewing workshop. Learned to sew. And I met one person, a former businessman, who was also there for economic crimes. He taught me a lot. What exactly? Planning, discipline, responsibility. Everything I lacked in life. And what's next? Next, I'll get out and start my own business. An honest business. I already have a plan. What plan? A tailor shop. Custom clothing. I learned well. I have the skills. And my head seems to be on straight now. Ethan took a small box out of his pocket. This is for you. What is it? Open it. Inside were earrings, the same emerald earrings he had bought for his mother on that fateful day. Ethan, why? Mom didn't take them, said they were bought with dishonest money, and I thought they were bought with my money, so they're perfectly honest. I can't take them. You can. Consider it a symbol. The end of our old story and the beginning of, well, I don't know, a good relationship between us. I looked at the earrings. They were indeed beautiful. Ethan, why are you doing all this? Why did you tell me everything? Because I wanted you to know the truth, the whole truth. And because I want to ask for forgiveness. For everything. For what exactly? For using you for 3 years, for lying, for staging that stupid experiment with the card, for making you live in tension and uncertainty. Ethan leaned towards me. Sarah, I understand we'll never be together. You have a new family, a new life, and I'm happy for you. You deserve happiness. Thank you. But I want you to know if I could go back in time, I would have acted completely differently. I was a fool, but I've changed. I believe you. And one more thing. That experiment with the card showed me a lot. What exactly? That you're a smart, strong woman. You immediately understood what was going on, but kept quiet. You let me get entangled in my own lies. It was elegant. I didn't know what to say to that. Ethan, what will you do now? Work, mend my relationship with Mom, build a new life, and I want to find all those people I deceived and personally apologize. You've already returned the money. Money is one thing, but moral damage is another. I want to look them in the eye and say I'm sorry. I nodded. That was the right thing to do. And of course I want to find a good woman for myself, Ethan added with a smile. Only this time I'll be honest from the very beginning. You'll find one. You've changed. Really? Really? You've become an adult. We finished our tea in silence, then Ethan looked at his watch. I have to go. Thanks for listening. Ethan, why did you tell me all this honestly? He thought for a moment. Probably wanted to put a period at the end, close this story properly without any loose ends. Understood. Ethan stood up. Sarah, be happy. You deserve it. You too. He headed for the exit but turned at the door. And I also want to say thank you. For what? For not completely ruining my life. You could have accused me more seriously in court, demanded the maximum sentence, but you were fair. I'm not vengeful. I know. That's why I fell in love with you once upon a time. He left, and I sat in the cafe for a long time digesting what I'd heard. So that whole story was a two-sided act. Ethan deliberately set up a provocation, and I unknowingly played along. But most importantly, he had really changed, become responsible, honest, a mature man. It was a shame it happened so late, though maybe it wasn't a shame. If he had changed earlier, we might have stayed together, which means I would never have met Andrew. I wouldn't have this wonderful family. Everything in life happens when it's supposed to. I took the box with the earrings and left the cafe. Andrew was waiting for me outside. How did it go? He asked. Interesting. Very interesting. On the way home, I told him the whole conversation. Andrew listened silently occasionally, shaking his head. Well, what a story, huh? He said at the end. So you were both deceiving each other. It seems so. The earrings are beautiful. Will you wear them? I looked at the box. I don't know, maybe someday. As a memento that even the most complicated stories can have a good ending. Katie greeted us at home. Well, how are things with your ex? She asked with teenage curiosity. Normal. He's changed for the better. And what now? Nothing. We said goodbye for good. Good. Katie nodded. I was worried he'd want you back. I hugged the girl. No one's getting me back anywhere. I'm where I want to be. In the evening, when Katie was asleep, Andrew and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea. Sarah, do you regret that time, those 3 years with Ethan? I thought. No, I don't regret it. That experience taught me a lot. What? To value honesty, not to idealize people. To rely on myself, and also to distinguish real love from illusion. Andrew took my hand. And what is real love? It's when you feel calm and secure with a person, when you know he'll never betray you, when you can be yourself without pretending. Like with us. He kissed me. I love you, Sarah. I love you too. We sat in silence listening to the clock ticking on the wall. Outside was a calm city night. Somewhere far away, Ethan was living his new life. Somewhere nearby, Katie was sleeping. And we were here, in our home, in our family. The story of the stolen card had finally closed. Not tragically, but brightly. Everyone got what they deserved. Ethan, a second chance at an honest life. Me, a real family. Justice triumphed in the most unexpected way. And a month later, I found out I was pregnant. And that was the best news of my life. A new chapter had begun in every sense.